Hi, it's Anne, and we're getting ready for the holidays. I've had a number of people ask me about the idea of a gratitude journal, and I'm a big believer in gratitude journals. I think at any, without trying to sound too much like Pollyanna, there usually is something in our lives that we can be grateful for, and journaling is a really nice, private, quiet, intimate way to reflect on those things. And you can make a gratitude journal any time of year, but November tends to be a time when, in junk journal world, we often put together special little mini journals where we really reflect on things that we're grateful for. And I've been doing this for several years. In fact, the very first journal I ever made in late 2020 was a gratitude journal. I'll show you that on some other day, but that's just just a regular journal. I didn't time it to November at all. I just at the end of the year made a list of all of the things that I was grateful for, because even in that terrible year of 2020, there were things I was grateful for. And I'll go over that another day. But by 2021, I had seen an idea somewhere for a November gratitude journal, and I thought, that would be really nice. It is, if the pages are small, if you dedicate, one page for each day of the month, it's not a big commitment just to write a little something on that day that happened that made you just feel some sense of gratitude in your heart. And, not to get all sappy about it, but it's a nice practice. It's a nice way to enter the journaling practice. If you're one who enjoys making journals but not necessarily writing in them, this is a nice it provides a nice entry point. And so this is one that I made, and you can see this is my actual journal from November of 2021. It was so easy to make, and I very frequently go back to it and remember, some of those special little moments of that November. I've recorded other Novembers too, but this particular style of journal I enjoy. So I thought I thought this would be something that we could do together. If you might be interested in doing the same thing, again, it doesn't have to be, tied to a certain date. Doesn't have to be gratitude at all, but let's just go ahead and get started. This tiny little journal, these are 3-inch squares, or I'm sorry, 3.5-inch squares. And I just made the pages out of a kind of a lightweight cardstock that was patterned paper. And you are going to see some of my things I actually wrote 3 years ago. Don't worry, there's nothing terribly private. I don't have my passwords in here. I don't mind having you see that on the 1st of November of that day, I was thinking about Halloween the night before and how much fun we had with our little grandson. But I just made a different page for each day of the month, and I stamped the number of the day. I'm going to do that a little bit differently this time because I stamped in brown to kind of keep with this neutral color theme, and it kind of got lost. So I'm going to put a little bit of a brighter color in there. But it was easy to make. And this is one where the spine is a little unusual. Each page is separate. It's not made out of folded signatures. This isn't great, with this embroidery floss and just a couple of these weird little charms that I had sitting around. But that's what this one is, and it worked for me for that year. So let's go ahead and go through that process, because if this is something you're interested in making, you can do so really easily. I put a piece of vellum on the cover that I did my stamping on. I don't, it's a little bubbly. I don't know that I'm going to be doing that again. But I'll set this aside and let's just get started on the new one. I do like particularly, for November, the earth tones and everything seems to be kind of nice. So what I did with this one, and I'm making it just a little bit larger. This one is 4 inches. Each of the pages are 4 inches square, made out of just a thrift store pad of scrapbooking paper that I had sitting around. I don't know which one I'm going to use for my cover yet, but let me go ahead and get started. This took only two 12-inch sheets because I cut them into 4-inch squares. So the first thing that I do using this method, I haven't made a lot of journals in this way, so my memory might be a little bit faulty as I go to put this one together. But I get out my scoreboard and my 4-inch squares. I'm going to score. Scoot myself over here. I'm going to, you know what, it's easier to score from this side. So I'm going to score just a 1/2 inch from the edge. You can just fold it. You do not need to have a scoreboard. I'm a card maker, so I tend to do the scoreboard thing quite a bit. Just a 1/2 inch. And I'm just going to do a few pages here, and then I'm not going to make you watch all of this, because there's a lot of repeated steps. A lot of repeated steps in this kind of journal. So I'm just going to do these few. There's 17 of these squares, of these 4-inch squares. So no matter what size you cut, you're going to cut 17 of them. And that's going to be your front and back cover and each of your pages for your journaling space. In addition, you're going to want 30 slightly smaller pieces of blank or blankish scrap paper, and I have inked the edges of all these, and these are going to be our writing space. So let's set these aside. I've done all of these already. Scrap paper, you know, backs of junk mail, fly leaves from an old book, but you're going to want 30 because 30 days hath November. Okay, we'll go back to these that we scored, and we are going to want to fold each of those. And then I don't know, this is certainly not necessary, but I do, you can see here, I do like to round the edges, but in this case I'm only going to do the edges that are on the right hand side. So this is the page prep. And I was kind of thinking that this one would be, that has this kind of little bit of interesting color in it. I was thinking that this one might be my cover. So I'm going to go through and do all of my squares like this. Scored on one side with the edges rounded. And we're going to be covering up most of this stuff too, so don't worry if some of it gets a little wonky or upside down. Yeah, this is going to be the cover. So let's work on the cover a little bit, and then we'll kind of begin to put all of them together. I do like to ink both sides. That's part of the time-consuming nature of this. So let's just assume that this is going to be the cover. And then this is going to be that little spine that's over here on this left-hand side. What makes sense to put here? I have a stamp that says grateful. That's what I used here. I use this a lot for my different embellishments, but I'm not tired of the grateful stamp. It's beautiful. I'm grateful for many things, but I thought, why don't we try something in case you don't have a stamp like that? Why don't we see if we can do a little something? This may not work. And if it doesn't, we'll use it for something else. But I had a book that had the word Thanksgiving in it. And I'm going to pull this out and tear it. And it doesn't even need to be terribly straight. Because again, what world are we in? We're in junk journal world. I'm thinking that this one might be a little large for this size journal with these 4-inch squares. But again, you could probably make these almost any size. You could make them smaller if you want a teensy journal. You can make them bigger. I just wanted to use the 4-inch squares because the math was really easy on those 12-inch scrapbook paper pieces. Well, that's going to be a little small there. That little edge was a little too small to... All right, so here's our word Thanksgiving. But guess what? This is not a journal about the holiday of Thanksgiving. This is a journal about giving thanks. What do you think of that? Is that going to be too big? That might be okay. It's a little strong. Let's try an alternative. I'm not discounting this, but let's just kind of try a different way. I pulled out a couple of stamps that I have, and there's one here that says thanks, and it's like for a thank you card. Thanks. But I also have some stamps that have a bunch of holidays on them, and here I have the word Thanksgiving. So I'm going to pull that out. And here's just a different way. I don't know if it's going to work or not. I do not know. But let's get out a stamping block. And do I have... Oh, here's my brown. And do I have something that I can stamp on? Yeah, this might be okay. This is just a little piece of a book flyleaf that I had sitting out. Make sure I'm in frame here. Okay, I am going to put Thanksgiving here on my acrylic block, but I am only going to ink the part that says giving. Probably feel a little more confident if I put a piece of washi tape over the thanks. I could do the same thing as I did before. I could stamp the whole word Thanksgiving and then cut it apart. But I just feel like trying a couple of different little fonts this time. So let's stamp here, or ink up my... Take that off in case I got some ink on that, which I probably did. And let's stamp giving. Let that ink transfer. There's that. Wipe that off on an old t-shirt. Some people like to clean their stamps by just, stamping it over and over on pieces of paper. I guess that's okay. I'm more of a swabbing it off on a piece of fabric kind of gal. So giving thanks. Let me get over that a little bit more. Sorry if you see the top of my head. And how should we... Oops, this one. It's my broken ink pad. There we go. That's better. I think I had a little label stamp here. This is handy. And let me see if that'll fit in there. That might be nice, but I think what I'd like to do is to decorate this. This is if I end up even using this, but I think I'm going to put a little bit of stamping over it just to give it a little more visual interest. And You kind of can't go wrong with some kind of a leaf motif. Not the artist's leaf motif, but a piece of scrap paper. I'm just going to pull out some green ink, and that's going to be too dark, so I'm going to do it on the second generation. I'm getting way at the bottom of the screen here. I know, sorry about that. There's that, and this is going to be a little bit lighter. Does that show through? That might be okay. Yeah, that's kind of nice. I kind of like that. Now we're going to have the big question about what to put on the cover. We're giving ourselves so many options. Of course, I can always make a couple of these and save one for next year. The thing about just writing a little bit every day about things that you're grateful for, you know, is that you can just keep it so simple. You know, I can't tell you how many pages I have in that book from a few years ago that, you know, I just kind of wrote about the best moment of the day. And some of them were just very ordinary moments, but they were things that I was really grateful that happened. You know, I talked to my sister and she gave me some advice on a PowerPoint presentation I had to make. Had a fun text chain with my brother about some, you know, some fun memory that that we had. You know, those are just all things that happen in the moment. And if we don't write them down, we're going to forget them. And you know what? It's, you know, they're not that exciting perhaps, but this is just a little corner scrap of brown packaging paper that I had on my desk. And I thought maybe this is something that we can put behind here. But, you know, if it's fresh in your mind, you know, you sit down on a Saturday evening to kind of reflect on your day, and, you know, it doesn't, you know, we're grateful for lots of things that don't involve, you know, winning the lottery or having some sort of, you know, huge life-changing event. We're grateful for, you know, a little chat that we can have with one of our siblings. We're grateful for a really good recipe that we tried. But something like that. Yeah, you know what I need to do also is I need to put the date in there. And I had, do you remember these? Did the librarian when you were a kid used to use these when you checked out books? I got one of these on eBay or Amazon not long ago, and I love it. I use it all the time in my journaling for writing, you know, stamping, you know, pages I create or entries that I make. I don't use it for every journal entry, but I thought it might be handy for this. Let me pull a little bit of more of this brown paper. And let's see, where's the piece that I was using for that? How about this? And this is going to be kind of a small date. I might be okay with that. I don't know. I took out the day of the month and just put some dashes in there. But let's see how that works. A little bit of a torn edge here. I promise we are going to be getting to the actual assembly of the journal. As well. My little scrap, that little brown paper that's just going to kind of ground that. That's one way that could work. Let's give the other guy a chance though. Let's give this big giving thanks. You know what? I think that's just a little bit too big. I think I might have to use that for something else. Yeah, I'll definitely use it. You might have a Thanksgiving word that you can, you know, rearrange that's a little bit smaller, or maybe your journal is going to be a little bit bigger. But I think I'm going to go with this as my journal cover. And I'm just going to kind of keep it simple. You can make it as elaborate as you want. Maybe you want to have a little bling. Maybe you want to have a little fabric or cheesecloth or something behind it. But since the whole ethos of this journal is one of simplicity and one sort of quiet reflection, that's kind of why I'm going with this type of design. And I want the paper to look very ordinary, you know. I want it to look like, you know, look like things that it, you know, that look like what it is, you know, which is just things that are not spectacular perhaps in the scheme of things, but the things that make up the stuff of life. I could go straight like that. I think I'm gonna tear this off just a little bit more. I'm getting perilously close to the overthinking things section here. I'm gonna turn, here's my glue stick. There we go. So you get to see all of the fascinating decision-making process here in my basement craft room. And yours, of course, is going to be completely different from this. You know why? Because you're unique. Yours can and should be completely different from this. I'm just kind of showing you the one way that you can do it. You can decorate it. There we go. All right. We're going to call that the cover for now. I might go back and add a little bit more, but let's kind of get back to the business at hand of actually creating these journals. I'm going to be making a whole stack of them here. Do one more. And I've inked, I'm going to ink the edges of each piece of scrapbook paper. And it is obviously a double-sided. Now, if you wanted to use a single-sided decorative paper, then that's going to give you automatic journaling space on the rest of the piece, which is also fine. There we go. If you don't have scrapbook paper, or you don't wish to have that look, another thing you can do is you can take book page and cut them into the same, you know, size squares that you want. You could also combine scrapbook and paper and book page. But if you do use book page, I would recommend that you double it up. You know, you glue a couple pieces together because you want something that you know, that can stand up to actually being a page and not easily tear. So just, you know, cut a doubled up, glued together book page into whatever squares you want, and that's a wonderful alternative. Okay, back to this. I have my little pages here. Now, where's my one from 2021? I didn't lose that already, did I? No. Oh my golly. There it is. Oh, how things disappear. When I did this one, I did a lot of careful counting, you know, so I had enough pages. We've got 17 squares here. And what I began was having leaving this side blank, the inside of the cover, and beginning November 1st on this second sheet. So I'm going to just begin doing my gluing down. And these are, again, just little scrap pages. I love the look of the inked edge, so I went ahead and did all of those. That's part of the fiddliness of the project. And these are going to be your journaling spots for each day. Isn't it exciting? It is exciting when you look at each journal and you think, wow, what is going to be on these pages? I'm turning this page and I'm going to do the next one. There we go. Let's do one more here, and then I'm going to take it off camera, finish this up, and we'll show you how we complete this, because this is really nothing but just just repeated steps here. And all of these pages are going to look kind of alike, but each one, as you write in it, each day in November, if you choose to use this method, is going to be wonderfully unique and such a wonderful little memory book for you as you build towards Thanksgiving. I'm going to continue doing that, scoring, inking, and prepping each page, and then we're going to put them together. So I'll be back in just a few minutes. Okay, I have been gluing my little blank sheets onto my cut cardstock pieces, and I have enough to get me through the whole month of November. I should acknowledge that I know not every culture celebrates Thanksgiving. The Thanksgiving holiday that I'm talking about is the United States holiday. That's the fourth Thursday in November. But this is the type of practice, if you just want to practice a little gratitude in your life, it's just easy and it's doable. So it really doesn't matter what part of the world you're in or what your cultural practices are. This is just it's just a nice thing to do. All right, back to our regularly scheduled demonstration. I've stacked everything together and I have one blank piece on the back because that's going to be the 30th. We're going to go through and number those before we're done. But the next thing we're going to do is we're going to bind all of these together. And it's important to get the holes all lined up. What I'm going to do is put a strand through each through the whole stack and tie them together. It's not going to be like a really tight bind. But for me, for just writing this little bit, it seemed to work just fine. And I kind of liked the fact that it was slipping a little bit. So let's just do it this way. You can always add more glue in if you want to glue everything on top of each other, because you're going to be able to open your pages with those scored lines that you have there. At least this worked really well for me when I did it a few years ago. So I'm just going to, because this is 4 inches in, I don't want my middle piece to be too long. And by middle piece, I mean the space between the holes. So I think I'm going to come in 3/4 of an inch from each side. 1, 2, 3. And we'll just kind of see how that works. It might be nice to do an extra. Oh, I've come in, I've mismarked it, haven't I? Let's see, there's 2. I've come in 1, 2, 3, 4. I've come in a whole inch on that side. Yeah, that looks a little bit better. An inch from each side. This is just how this is feeling to me. Your mileage may vary. I am going to take out my hole punch, and I'm going to use just my smaller hole. This is just a 1/4 inch hole, I think, with my Crocodile Big Bite. And I'm going to punch here, and I'm going to punch there where I marked it. And I'm going to go through all of these and put these holes in exactly the same spot. It might be handy for me to make a bit of a template. I have a little bit of a scrap here. Maybe I'll make a template here. I could always use this as the template, you know, the actual project piece. But if I slip off or something, I don't want to ruin my my cover. So I might be able to punch a couple at the same time. Let's just see. I'm not going to make you watch me go through all 17 pages. That wasn't a good idea. That wasn't a good idea to make the template on something that's shorter than my project piece. Like that. And this is the full width. That's that full 4 inches. Now I'm going to go back in and mark again where that is and where that is. I don't know if this is going to work or not, but let's just see. I can always make more of these, but I'd rather not. It might be better just to do them individually, but we'll see. Okay, there's my little template just from a scrap that I have, and I have two pages here. This might be a case of being foolhardy and trying to cut corners, or it could be a case of actually discovering a process improvement. Yeah, so far so good. I'm going to go through and punch all these holes, and then we'll be back and we'll put them all together. All right, we are back again, having lined up all of our little holes on our little spine here, our little foldy spine. And now we're just going to tie them together. A needle works really well for this, but this is a hack. I did a hacks video not long ago, and you saw it as part of that. I think I'm just going to try that. This is I don't know if you can even see here. It's a piece of one of those dental floss loops, and that is very nice for getting things through small spaces. So I'm just going to try that here, and you can see I'm putting the long end of this loop through all of my various holes. I'm going to hold that there so it doesn't fall out, and I've cut a piece of wax thread that I tend to use for binding, and I'm just going to pull it through here. I like the wax thread because you can really get a nice tight knot on them. It kind of grabs to itself, and I like that. It's just a nice feel for binding a signature together, and this is not a traditional signature. Now, the thing about those loops is they disappear. Oh, here it is. They're hard to see. Okay, so we have it coming through one side. If you, I should have said, I have all 17 pages put together here. If you wanted to add any extra pages, like if you thought you might want to have a page where you have a pocket and a little tag or something extra, this would be the time to add that in. You could do it later, but you have to take the whole thing apart, and we don't want that. We've got things we've got to do. Well, fiddly. You might be better off with a needle, but I just happened to run across this dental floss loop, and I thought, oh, let's just use that this time. Let's be grateful we have these little tools handy at our disposal. And just a few more to go. There we go. It's all the way through. And then I'm going to take that floss and put it through that loop. And we're just going to pull that bad boy right through. Make sure I didn't miss anybody. Nope, didn't miss anybody. Okay. Now the other one you saw, I had a couple little charms on there. They were, you know, they're not great. I think maybe I can go back and add those later if I want. I might just leave these strings a little bit longer in case I want to add a little piece of metal. But I'm just going to tie this in a knot. And I don't even need... If Dan were here, I would probably ask him to put his finger on the knot so I could get it nice and tight. But I'm going to try to muscle through this one. Make it as tight as I can because that paper's sturdy. It's not going to rip. And there we go. I will do something with these later, but for now, there's our bound journal. Now I will tell you, when you go to write in it, you will find that it's really easy to write on the left or the right-hand page, but when you turn the page to the left-hand page, and you know, the first time you go, you know, you're going to have to coax that fold into being. Of course, you will go back and look at this so many times that those folds will become very pliable for you. But when you write on the left-hand page, you're going to have a little bit, it's going to be on a little bit of a slant. So you might want to, well, I don't think I would keep an ink pad handy, but, you know, keep a couple of, you know, a magazine or a book or something here handy, and, you know, when you're writing, because that's going to give you a nice flat surface. That's the only thing that I find inconvenient about this assembly. But once you've written in it, it's, you know, it's just fine. It's just a lovely little journal. And again, look, yeah, you can write a little something every single day. How will we know which days we're going to be writing in? Well, we get out some number stamps, and I have this old beat-up set that I got at a thrift store, I don't know how many years ago, and I'm going to go through and I'm going to number each of my pages. You can also do it by hand. You could do, if you wanted to use your library stamp and, you know, use the actual day, you could do that, but I'm just going to use this because this is what I have used before, and I kind of like that, and it doesn't take up much room. So I'm going to show you how I'm going to do that. And I'm not going to go through the whole thing because you know how to count to 30. There we go. I'm just going to keep going through the whole thing. And I did decide to put this in green just so it would stand out visually a little bit more, because the one that I did, as I showed you a few years ago, those page numbers got a little, you know, a little lost in it. This is just a really fun holiday project to do, and I do consider this a holiday project because it's something that, you know, we're in the States, we're used to, you know, the whole notion of Thanksgiving, but giving thanks is really a practice. You know, it really is. It is something that we can practice in our everyday lives. And what better time than the busy holiday time to take a little bit of a few minutes on each day just to write down a little something that happened that day that you were thinking about that just makes you grateful. I hope you had fun with this, guys. I'm really going to enjoy using this, and I hope you make one for you. See you soon.